Okay, rulers, settle down. Ruler School is brought to you by Odyssey Games, where you can go to get pre-orders of all the upcoming Force of Will sets, as well as releases of previous sets after they come out. TCGprime.com with over 100,000 Force of Will singles, as well as out-of-print boxes from the past, and TCG accessories, as well as FowlLibrary.com, a wonderful resource for deck lists, article discussions, and more. Check them out at FowlLibrary.com, as well as these amazing patrons. Special thanks to guest lecturer member wyatt. Thank you for your support. Class is in session. Hey there, rulers. DM073 here. Happy New Year. Welcome to 2022 for our first deck profile. This is the first version of Kaguya Moon Control. Again, designed to kind of be a straightforward, here's a good place to start with Kaguya if you haven't already thought about it. So let's jump right in. Obviously, Kaguya, god of cats and moons, making a lot of control stuff, making a lot of tokens. Your person, remember that it gains +X and flying. X is specifically the number of additions you control. So even if your opponent has a Dark Sun out, you're still getting flying and +1s, which is important to note. Stone base wise, we're playing 4 Stone of the 6 Sages, 2 Stone of the Elements, because you can turn it into a 5-color stone with Hanzo, which is nice, and 4 Magic Stone of Knowledge. You are a green-based deck. You have a green-based stone base. Once again, 6 Sage Stone here is really primarily just for the untap rather than the color fixing, but there are some moments where the color fixing is important, especially if your opponent keeps answering your Hanzos. Hanzo playing as a 4 of, pretty standard here. This guy is kind of the bread and butter, the linchpin of the deck. If you don't have a Hanzo active, or if your opponent keeps answering it, it is very easy to fall behind as Kaguya. One thing to note again is the way his effect works is when you put him on the chase as a revolution, you have to determine what the X is when you put it on the chase. So it's always better to be a little bit more conservative with the X cost that you're declaring, because if for some strange reason you don't have the will to pay for it up front and you need to rely on the moon that you're getting from Kaguya or something else like that, and your opponent answers the Hanzo, then suddenly you can't pay enough, and then suddenly his entire effect whiffs. Later games, obviously this isn't a huge deal because you can pay 4 and still have plenty of will up. You've generated a bunch of other moons, so it's all good. But you just really need to be cautious in the early game with Hanzo. 4 copies of Feetsing, the primary main cancel for this deck. It is crazy powerful, it is crazy strong, but also, you can manipulate it and stuff like that, especially since, canceling activate abilities or automatic abilities is good, but at the same time, it can't answer bodies. The one thing this deck struggles with is it doesn't have a ton of spot removal. You'll see in this list we have 4 total cards that can spot remove, so it's a little bit tricky there. 2 copies of Kotaro, Ninja of Silence. This is mainly to have a body that we can use to help finish the game just by itself, that doesn't have to be ordered, because it is quite a threat with +2/+2 for each moon you control, as well as the ability to clear off those pesky additions. 4 copies of War It Shall Be, because it's essentially deck thinning. Just makes your deck a 36-card deck, because you can grab anything with tails, and pretty much every single one of your resonators is a tails resonator. And then it recovers, so it's very, very helpful. 2 copies of Galileo. The only reason why we're playing 2 is just in case something happens to the first one, because this guy is kind of the secondary big win con. I do want to say that I missed this here, because I'm playing too many copies of Keep the Faith and stuff, so you can probably switch that out. We'll talk about that in a minute. Galileo Polymath is one of the 3 main win cons of Kaguya, and is probably the quote-unquote safest to try to resolve, so that's just something for you to note. 1 copy of Rabbit Ninja, because we can search it if we need to, and it's the kind of the backup win con, but it's not necessarily as safe because it doesn't really have any protection built into it, but it does also help us draw some cards. 4 copies of Wind Moon. You can probably go down to 2. It's a good card to just be able to have a free cantrip that also puts a moon into play for later, and you want moons in this deck, obviously. 4 copies of Gale of the Moon, because once again, it's a cancel that also generates a moon. The Moon Edition token is the best part. Personally, I'm a big fan of the idea of the first card you're playing in Kaguya being Gale of the Moon, rather than trying to slam Hanzo early, so that you have at least 1 moon when you play that first Hanzo to be able to protect it. But that's me. 4 copies of Seal and Wind and Water. This can go down. You can probably only play about 2 if you really feel like it. It's mainly to help you recycle feastings, as well as being able to recycle something like a Kotaro or something like that. It's not super relevant, but if you're trying to play a more baseline version, this is something that you can play more of. 4 copies of Absorbing Knowledge, because it's a way to destroy your own J-Ruler, which is super important for this deck sometimes when you're ready to pop off and suddenly play something like Galileo. It's just really good. And that draws you some cards. Same thing with 4 copies of Spark of Life. This can probably go down to like 3, but like this is your only spot removal in this deck, because you destroy your J-Ruler, which is important, and then you can pop something your opponent controls, which includes additions. 2 copies of Keep the Faith. This wasn't played in the lists that you saw, but I do think it's worth including. It's at least a 2 of, because it can grab back Feasting from the graveyard, so it's just essentially 2 more copies of Feasting, which is huge. 4 copies of Kaguya Enters the Game of Gods. A pretty straightforward card here in terms of also being an option for a win con, and then 1 copy of Arena Expansion. The 1 copy of Arena Expansion is more for if you feel like you're going to get into a grindy game, because when you play this, it suddenly turns off Kaguya Enters the Game of Gods as a win condition, because your things can't be destroyed, your moon editions can't be destroyed. So then you're suddenly dealing with that you can't destroy them all to use Kaguya Enters the Game of Gods. So just something for you to note there. Other important cards that you can think of is obviously number 13, Anti-Magic. Number 13, Anti-Magic, if you have availability to it. But again, we tried to make this more of a baseline, just what is available from like, I mean, it also is ADW, I guess, so like easier to find cards, and not necessarily overflowing the deck with cancels, because you need more than just cancels to win, especially in a format that has orders. But these are just some things for you to consider as you go build your deck. So let us know what you guys think of Kaguya version 1, or if kind of other tech cards or alternative win cons you guys have found to be able to push into it. Let us know your comments in the comment section down below. Happy New Year, and until next time, this is DMO73 saying class dismissed.